Yeah, well, I mean, there's several different objects that I could nominate. The one I'd really like to talk about today is the portrait of Lady Henrietta in the State Dining Room. I mean, it's obviously painted by Reynolds, the first president of the Royal Academy, and as a historian, I really like objects that have a tangible connection to great historical figures. I find that really exciting. But also, it's an important part of the Powys story. Lady Henrietta is obviously one of the key figures in the Herbert family history, with her marriage into the Clive family, which was instrumental in reviving the family fortunes, which had been at a very low point before that. But the detail that particularly makes me laugh is the addition of the blue hat at a later date by a different artist to keep up with the fashions. I think it lends the painting a very human touch. It really tells you something about the person it depicts and their character. And also, if you look closely, you can see where part of the hat has been cleaned away because somebody's cleaned it too vigorously. Again, that says something about past housekeeping techniques before the National Trust took over. So there's a lot of different things, different elements of history that you can glean from just that one object, and I find that really interesting.
There's one item that really intrigues me, and that is the picket post in the Gateway Room. It was presented to Sir Edgar Percy Herbert, who was he was the father of the 4th Earl, and it's a broken picket post from the Crimean War. It's just the thing that intrigues me about it is there is a story about that. We don't know, I'm sure. Why would somebody be presented with a broken picket post, essentially where you just tie up your horse overnight? You know, how did it get broken? What were the reasons behind it? It was during the Crimean War. The general, although he wasn't the Earl, he was the second son. But there are lots of things in the house that relate to the Crimean War. So there's a big beer barrel in the cellars called the Inkerman, and his war horse, possibly the very horse that was tied up on the picket post in question, Inkerman was his name, was brought back from the Crimea and is actually buried in the grounds as you leave the grounds.
I like the wall clock. Simply because I've got a history and interest in timepieces. I like the clock piece because A, it's practical, it does something, and it's an ornament. Because you see some ornaments don't do anything, they're just there, aren't they? And clocks do something, you tell time. And that one, I believe, is a ball clock, and it's one of the first ones with a pendulum, and it's very, very accurate. Because I think Huygens, wasn't he? He was the first one to invent the pendulum clock, I think, in the 1600s. And Bull, even though he made cabinet pieces, obviously there's two parts to a clock, that's his case, and the movement. So they came together. But the marquetry as well was very outstanding. And I like the chime, because it reminds me of my clock at home. French particular chime was ding, not a dong like a German clock and so on. It's true, isn't it? So they are. And it's a fantastic piece. And I'm only envious that I can't get closer to it, because when you're a guy, you've got the area sort of roped off, so I've got my glasses on and peering at it, and it's great with the chimes. So I'd like to have a closer look at it. And also, there's one thing about French clocks as well. They have these little dome bells inside. They're not always concentric. There's a slight sort of tangent to them for some reason. So you have to, when you do that and get these sort of striking mechanism, you have to get in the right position. Otherwise, it just goes dunk.
Right. Well, my favourite object is the room. It's the state bedroom, which it's always sort of given me so much pleasure whenever I work in it. It's one of my favourite rooms. You cover the top of the long gallery and the state bedroom, and I love taking visitors in there. I find it a very intimate room, a very beautiful, ostentatious room, the colours and everything, and it's just gorgeous. And the royal visitors that have stayed there, Edward VII, George V, Queen Mary, and Queen Victoria, before she was Queen, stayed there as well. and our own Prince Charles, he would have been offered the state bedroom, but he declined and he stayed in the Duke's bedroom. The balustrade in there is unique, and only royalty, you know, or the earls could go beyond that balustrade while they're in residence. Otherwise, obviously, when they were not there, people would go in and clean and everything and stuff. And it's sort of a very intimate room. Some of the visitors come and they say, oh, I don't know whether I could stay in here. And others say, oh, I'd love to stay in here. When you take visitors in, they can just go in at about 8 or 10 people, and you just keep them there in that little space, and it just seems very intimate, you know, and the photographs of the royalty, etc. It's a lovely room.
There's the stuffed penguins sitting in the smoking room, and I love it because it kind of symbolises taxidermy in a kind of strange way. It's not your traditional stuffed weasel or a stuffed bird looking kind of a bit angry at you all the time. The penguin is just sitting there, and I really like it because it's something you look at and it's, oh, that's taxidermy. And most people go, oh, taxidermy, but you look at it and you go, oh, that's really nice. It's like a little call-up cat. It's really cheerful, I think, with its wee scales and its wee hand. And it's one of those things that you have, I think, to be a specific kind of person to immediately notice the penguin in the corner. But I really like taxidermy, and I think the castle definitely has a really good collection. I mean, some of it's local, obviously, and some of it's probably further afield. I'm imagining a penguin is not something you find wandering around the local area. So, I mean, the bird collection, obviously, a lot of them are native and things like that, but it's a little bit of quirkiness, but it's just really nice. It's nice to see, because people obviously don't have the same appreciation they used to. Obviously, sometimes you can get to an animal and you can stuff it and it'll never look right. I mean, then there's the people who taxidermy roadkill and things like that. And you go, how did you do that? I mean, the penguin is just, it's quite a perfect specimen. It's all completely intact and all the scales are intact and things like that. It's just, I don't know, it's just a really nice little, it's like having a pet in the room almost. And you know it's always going to be there, and I think that's really nice. And it's between all these things, because you think of all these these old-fashioned things, and you're so afraid of breaking everything. I don't know, it's kind of nice when everything else is like, oh, don't bump into that, you gotta dust this, everything's gotta be perfect kind of thing. And it's just a little bit of calm. And
it's the Borlotto painting of Verona in the oak drawing room. I don't really know that much about it. I know it's painted by Borlotto, who was a nephew of Canaletto and a pupil of Canaletto. But the reason I like the painting is it's almost real. I don't know if you've ever looked at the painting, but it's a picture of water boats in Verona, and the water in the painting, when you get a certain light on it, it almost feels that if you put your hand out and touch the water, you bring your hand back, it would be wet, and it is just so real. The other thing I love about the painting, and all of the people who come here, I tell them about it, and actually a lot of people enjoy it, is the castle on the hill. If you stand on one side of the painting and look at the castle, you can see it's in a certain position on the painting. And if you walk to the other side of the painting, the castle's changed its position. So it's really, really good perspective on the part of the artist. I have no idea how it's done, but it's just wonderful to watch this castle move position. So that's really why I like it.